Hello everyone, back tuning into the final ENSO update of 2019. So we are virtually at winter updates now. They're going to be starting in just a couple of days' time on Sunday, the 1st of September. And one of the very significant factors within the winter updates, one of the things we'll be looking at week by week by week, right way through the autumn, will be what's happening in the ENSO region in terms of El Niño, La Niña, and all of that kind of thing. So the monthly ENSO update that we do every month from January through to August will, from this month, be put on the back burner. There'll be no need to do it because we'll be covering it in the ENSO updates every week. So we will just be repeating ourselves if we happen to carry on doing this every month. So for the next few months, this is going to be put on the back burner, and then it will return. The next round of ENSO updates will return in January. So we're doing the final ENSO update of 2019. I'm going to bring you up to date with all of the latest developments in terms of El Niño, La Niña, all of that kind of thing. And at the end of the video, we will have a look at 3 long-range models to see what they're predicting for the rest of this year and into early next year in terms of ENSO. Been a busy day at Gaz Office today. So started off, of course, as always, on a Friday with JMA Friday. That's your month-ahead look ahead. And also, of course, week to 10-day video update. You can find both of those vids on the homepage at gavsweathervids.com. And go and have a look at those when you're done with this one. Right, so we're going to start off with the cold and warm episodes by season chart from CPC, NCEP, and NOAA. This is depicting all El Niño and La Niña events going right way back to 1950 on a tri-monthly basis. We scroll down through the years and through the decades. For example, we get to, let's take one at random, we get to 1987 through to 1988, starting in 1986 as well. This is an El Niño period indicated by those red numbers in the boxes. Once we've got the screen highlighter set up, sorry about that, it's been a very long day. I've been having a major Windows update this evening as well, so that's definitely running a little bit late. But there you go. Anyway, we've got the highlighter set up now. So that's 1986, that's 1987, that's 1988. See these red numbers here in the boxes. That is the El Niño that started at the end of 1986, went through to 1987. That was quite a weak one. Most of those numbers look pretty weak, 1.2, 1.2, 1.1. And then it took off a little bit again in the second half of 1987. You see these red numbers sort of increasing, particularly through the autumn, before it wanes into the winter of 87, 88. And then we flip it into La Niña, into a cold event, through the second half of 1988. All these negative blue numbers then appear. That's a very strong La Niña event, very strong cold event that happened from middle of 1988 through to 1989. So, on this chart, El Niño is depicted as red numbers, La Niña depicted as blue numbers. The all-important number is 0.5, be that above or below average, because that is the threshold that you've got to meet to either be at El Niño if you're 0.5, half a degree or more above average, or 0.5 or more below average for La Niña. You have to run it over 5 tri-monthly periods as well, so that can be quite difficult at times also. Right, let's go down to the very latest then. So we're down at 2018, 2019. So storyline through the past few months is that we had a La Niña, a weak La Niña, through the winter of 2017, 2018. It went to ENSO neutral through the summer 2018, and then late on in the year it flipped into an El Niño, albeit only a very weak El Niño, but there was a weak El Niño event taking place through the winter of 2018-2019. That's continued, albeit weakening, through the first half of 2019 up to the summer. Latest tri-monthly period that we have is for May, June and July. Just there at that's all important and crucial, 0.5. So if it goes any lower, and I think it will when this updates next month for June, July, August, when the number appears in this box just here, I think that will take us under the critical 0.5 above average, and so you will find then that the next number placed just here is going to be black. I anticipate it'll be somewhere around 0.4, 0.3. That will be under the required El Niño threshold of half a degree above average, and so we will be back then at ENSO neutral. So I think we've pretty much now returned to ENSO neutral. And this tri-month period for May, June, July just here will be the final tri-month period of this particular El Nino event. It has been a very, very weak El Nino event. Only just made it at its strongest to an El Nino. The event actually peaked in October, November, December, just there at 0.9 degrees above average. So it didn't even get to 1 degree above average. It's about as weak an El Nino as you can possibly get. But there you go. I think we're pretty much back at ENSO neutral. Anyway, now. So when we did the ENSO update for July, this is how things were looking in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies through the ENSO region. Of course, it's this area just here from Peru over to Indonesia that we are interested in. That is the equatorial Pacific Ocean. It's along the equator, of course, the central belt of the Earth. So red, orange, red colours are going to be depicting on these charts above average sea surface temperature anomalies. That's going to be an El Nino if it's through the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Blue is depicting colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies. That will be depicting La Niña if it's covering the ENSO region. So that's how things were looking last month. Seemingly a slow and gradual change into perhaps a weak La Niña signal, particularly over here in the eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Let's have a look at the very latest, and that is it. So you can see that over the past month, actually those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies have expanded out across the equatorial Pacific Ocean a little bit. This definitely gets us back to ENSO neutral now. No question about that whatsoever. That's definitely back to ENSO neutral, and probably a little bit on the colder side of ENSO neutral, if anything, through the central part of the equatorial Pacific. It's a relatively weak signal, but it's not at La Niña yet. I don't think this temperature anomalies go down low enough to be at La Niña threshold. They're kind of like 1 degree to half a degree on the scale below average through most of this area. So that doesn't quite get us to La Niña type threshold. So we're on the cold side of ENSO neutral, if you like. We do still have quite a lot of cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies here around Chile. And that's moving up into the equatorial Pacific in that sort of direction. However, this has weakened a little bit over the past month. I think let's have a look at last month. So that's how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking south of the equatorial Pacific last month. Chile just there, of course. This is the latest. So towards the Chilean coast, it has actually deepened with those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies just there. They have actually got colder towards the Chilean coast. But just here, I think we have possibly, if anything, weaken those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies a little bit. But actually, there's probably not much in it, really, when you look at it. And certainly over towards Chile, we have probably increase those cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies. So we're at ENSO neutral. We do have a slight signature of La Niña there, but not enough yet to be able to say that we are at La Niña threshold, and we may never get to La Niña threshold. These are the subsurface temperature anomalies from the CPC, NCEP, and NOAA PDF. This gets updated every week. It's a fantastic read. Do have a look at this if you can. It gets updated every Monday. So with this, you have to think that this is kind of like the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here. So that's sort of where we've just been looking at, with Peru, of course, just there, and Indonesia will be over there. And then these are the depths of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, going all the way down to 300 meters. Now you can see that on the surface, particularly over towards the eastern part, or towards the surface, just under the surface, let's say, as these are subsurface temperature anomalies, so just under the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, we have a slight signature for La Niña there on the eastern side. It's a little bit colder than average, but at depth, as we go down sort of the 100, 150, 200 meters, there isn't a huge amount of support for those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies. We do still have some warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies, I should say, just here and just here. So I think this is ENSO neutral, really. This is an ENSO neutral type signature. I think that a month or two back, maybe we would go into La Niña, but I don't think we're going to. Look how much more supportive those cold and average subsurface temperature anomalies were sort of back in the middle of July. It looked rather colder at depth then, back in the middle of July, around those areas. But now the latest is that really we haven't got a great deal of support for those in terms of cold average subsurface temperature anomalies for the cold average sea surface temperature anomalies, if you see what I mean. So I think basically ENSO neutral is the signal from a subsurface temperature perspective, unless things start getting colder there at depth in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Of course, we also aren't seeing any sort of subsurface temperature anomaly support for an El Nino either, whilst we do have this area just here that is a bit warmer. That's nowhere near enough to support an El Nino event. So we haven't got support at depth either for El Nino or for La Niña, I wouldn't have thought. This is the SOI, Southern Oscillation Index. So this is measuring the atmospheric pressures in the Southern Ocean. It's from Queensland Government, which is part of Bureau of Meteorology, I believe. So when the SOI is negative, your atmospheric setup is going to be reflective of an El Nino event. When the SOI is positive, the atmospheric setup in the Southern Ocean will be reflective of a La Niña event. To get these events really spiralling, you need both the ocean and the atmosphere to couple up with one another. And when that happens, then things can really start to spiral. Now, what's been going on with the SOI is that, of course, we started very negative earlier in the summer, but through August, we have had quite a bit of positivity, actually, of the SOI. So these are our atmospheric pressure measurements just here for Darwin and Tahiti. Did I say that? But it's measuring atmospheric setup between Darwin and Tahiti. It's been a very, very long day, but that's what it's doing. It's measuring the atmospheric setup between Darwin and Tahiti. So there your barometric pressures readings. And these are the SOI numbers just here. So, for example, on the 4th of August, we was negative with the SOI at minus 11.71. Therefore, the atmospheric setup would be reflective of an El Nino event in the Southern Ocean. Now, we got some really positive numbers earlier in August. So we come up here to the 7th, to the 8th, to the 9th, to the 10th of August, and look at these positive numbers: plus 16, plus 19, plus 22, plus 20. If we carried on with that over several days and weeks, probably a couple of months, consistent positivity of the SY, we would undoubtedly start to shift ourselves into a cold event, into a La Niña. But we didn't maintain that very long at all. And as we come further up towards the middle of August, we go quite negative with the SOI again. So the 13th goes down to minus 11, 14th goes down to minus 17, 15th goes down to minus 19, 16th goes down to minus 16. That's the atmospheric setup swinging into an El Nino type setup. Then we go positive again. 17th and 18th and 19th are positive SOI numbers. Coming up to the more recent numbers, this is how we're looking. So we've got the 20th of August there, minus 13, 21st of August at minus 10. Those are reflective of an El Nino event. Then weekly into La Niña, 22nd and 23rd. Back to week El Nino, 24th, 25th. That's about ENSO neutral just there. And then the latest is we've actually started going more negative again. So the 27th of August comes out at minus 1.88. That's about ENSO neutral. Then 28 goes down to minus 18.19. And the very latest, 29th of August, is down to minus 15.05. And so what the atmosphere is doing is it's swinging between an El Nino and a La Niña, saying probably overall is reflecting ENSO neutral type conditions, which is about where we are now at the moment. We have lost that week El Nino. We haven't gone into a La Niña, and we're at ENSO neutral. And I think the way we're going between negative and positive numbers like this tells us that the atmospheric setup also is going to be reflective of ENSO neutral type conditions. Look how the red line, which is the 30-day average, comes up from sort of an El Nino type position down here at minus 6, minus 7, minus 8 at the end of July, up to here as we get through to the last 10 days or so of August. And again, this tells us that the SY has lifted, that the atmosphere, I should say, has lifted out of the El Nino setup that it was in, and it's gone to ENSO neutral, but it hasn't gone to La Niña. It had a go at going to a La Niña type setup earlier on in August, but wasn't able to sustain it. And so everything is pointing at the moment towards ENSO neutral. Let's have a look at the models finally. So this is CFS V2. So we've got temperature anomalies along the side, and the dates in monthly periods are along the bottom. This is where we are right now. So again, we're around ENSO neutral. Black dash line is the ensemble mean. See, that's lifting up a little bit, but it's staying at an ENSO neutral, just on the warm side of ENSO neutral. That's the all important half a degree above average just there. That's the important half a degree below average just there. So you see the idea is that through to January, we won't go any further than New Year, I wouldn't have thought at the moment. And through to January, we're still at ENSO neutral. Now, what's interesting about this though, is that a month or two back, it's actually forecasting us to go into a weak La Niña type event, so it has pulled back from that a lot. We saw the first evidence of that in last month's ENSO update. It's pulled back further, and from there, it's not inconceivable, although it's quite unlikely, I think, but particularly from a subsurface temperature anomaly perspective, it's not totally inconceivable that from here we might actually start lifting this up in towards a weak El Nino again for the final 2 or 3 months of the year. It's unlikely that we would do that, but it can't be totally ruled out. The blue lines there are the more recent ensemble blue members, and they are sort of on the borderline between ENSO neutral and weak El Nino. I think it's unlikely we'll go back to weak El Nino for the winter of 2019-2020, but the way CFS has really pulled back from its weak La Niña forecast a month or two back to now being on the warm side of ENSO neutral, not all that far away from a weak El Nino. We can't totally rule out possibility that that could happen, but I think it's very, very unlikely. This is the ECMWF. So again, this is the ensemble plume from the ECMWF seasonal model. We got the temperature anomalies on the side, dates are on the bottom. That's 1 degree above average just there. That's ENSO neutral. That's 1 degree below average, weak La Niña just there. So from the ensemble plume members, so the coldest members are down here. They're sort of going into a very weak La Niña, to the warmest ensemble plume members, which are just here. They're sort of going into a weak El Nino. So they're the two extremes. But the broad thrust of the ECM ensemble is sort of in this area just here. And again, that's very much ENSO neutral, really. Whether that's ENSO neutral on the warm side slightly, or ENSO neutral on the cold side slightly. Essentially, that's where the ECM WF ensemble plume is at, around ENSO neutral. So there is a possibility we could go to weak La Niña. There is a possibility we could return to a weak El Nino. But the ensemble plume itself is pretty much around that ENSO neutral position through to the end of the year. And then finally, we've got Jamstec just here. So again, same idea. We've got temperature anomalies on the side, dates are on the bottom in monthly periods. Where we are right now is at ENSO neutral. We've dropped down from the El Nino that was in, the weak El Nino we was in earlier in the year. Red line is ensemble plume. So again, that's keeping us around ENSO neutral. It does just very briefly around November, December, just about gets towards slight El Nino threshold. But overall, again, that's basically ENSO neutral still, but on the warm side of ENSO neutral. Let's just finally have a look at El Nino Madoki index. So it is actually hinting at a little bit of a Madoki El Nino there. We're taking the index up to that sort of level. So where are we with that? Let's just scroll down a little bit. So where we are is going to be yeah, that's right. So that's around where we are right now. Sorry about that, I got a bit thrown by the days, but that's where we are right now, somewhere around there. So we've got a very slight Madoki El Nino at the moment, and Jamstec forecast that we may keep that Madoki El Nino through towards the end of the year. That's a central based El Nino. It can be associated with colder winters, particularly for northern parts of America, but sometimes for the UK too, before the Madoki El Nino falls away as we get through into the early part of next year. I think very much we're at ENSO neutral, and that's where I'm expecting us to stay for the time being. So my call would be that the winter of 2019-2020, unless something unexpected happens, which it may do, But unless something unexpected happens, I suspect this will be an ENSO neutral. Will be an ENSO neutral winter, but on the warm side of ENSO neutral. That's what I would suspect is likely to happen winter of 2019-2020. But of course, there may be surprises and shocks along the way, and that's what we'll be monitoring in the winter update. So every week we're going to do a winter update. Part of Winter Update, one particular section of it, probably around 5 minutes every week, will be devoted to El Nino. And of course, we will have ENSO analogues as well, where we'll look at what could happen, for example, ENSO neutral. So, okay, we'll look at winter analogues that are ENSO neutral winters and see what the impacts could be from having an ENSO neutral winter, if we can do that for you. And that, of course, will be a rather longer winter update focusing on ENSO. But every week we will keep monitoring what's happening in the ENSO region, and something unexpected could happen, but I wouldn't expect it to. So I think it could be an ENSO neutral winter, which I don't think we've had for a little while, actually. It may be 2013, 2014, perhaps that was our last ENSO neutral winter. Not sure about that, although of course, I mean, last winter was okay, it was an El Nino winter, but it was so weak that for us, far away from the equatorial Pacific Ocean, far away from the ENSO region, for us it was probably an ENSO neutral winter, really. I doubt that El Nino was strong enough to have any impacts really on our weather. The year before was a weak La Niña. That's a little bit stronger. That possibly did have some effects. But overall, I mean, we haven't seen a huge ENSO development since the winter of 2015-16, when we had the Super Nino. So anyway, looks like it'll be ENSO neutral, and we'll keep monitoring those through winter updates. They're starting on Sunday, 1st of September, will be update number 1 for winter of 2019-2020. The Gaz Weather's ENSO updates will return in the new year. And that's pretty much all of the decks cleared now for winter updates, I think. So we did the last Solar Sunday as well, and everything else has been cleared. So that's pretty much it now. We're set up for the winter updates beginning on Sunday. Tomorrow we're going to have the weekend forecast for you at Gaz Weather's, as always, on a Saturday. But we will begin with our autumn forecast. So before we get to the winter updates, before we do them, we've got to release Gaz Weather's autumn forecast, and that'll be the first video up at 10 AM tomorrow. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.